Welcome to Cost Allocation Pro. We recently added some enhancements to Cost Allocation Pro. Let's quickly go over the changes we added to the configuration page. To get to the configuration settings, you're going to go to the gear icon in the top right of Cost Allocation Pro and navigate to the configurations page. You'll notice that there are now 4 tabs on this page. We've got default mapping, allocation settings, time settings, and custom mapping. Default mapping is where you are going to map your QuickBooks classes and accounts for your allocation journal entries. We now offer separate mapping for your general ledger account debits and credits on your journal entries. If you're using a payroll clearing account, which would typically be set up as a liability on your chart of accounts, that is where you are first assigning your payroll transactions. But then you want to pull them out of the payroll clearing account. That is now allowed in Cost Allocation Pro, and you can do that for all of your salaries and benefits if needed. The next tab we have is the Allocation Settings tab. On this tab, you can define your indirect cost rate. If you are using an indirect rate that applies to direct salaries, you can key in that indirect rate here. You can define the number of decimals that you want display on your cost allocation reports. On the Time Settings tab, we now have the ability to make the class fields required or not. Previously, you had to have a customer class assigned to time activity, but now you can define whether or not you would like that class field to be required or have the ability to leave it blank. And you can do the same with the customer field. Finally, on the Custom Mapping tab, you can create custom mapping rules. So if you have employees that need to be expensed to a different set of accounts than your default mapping, this is where you can create those rules. Let's create a role for Officer to Director. This will allow the salary for the Officer to Director to be coded differently than the other employee. For the officer, let's say any customer and any class that you charge time to will debit officer salaries instead of the default salary account. Next, click Save here. Now let's go look at a journal entry and see how this rule affected the journal entry. Here's our cost allocation report. We can see our journal entry. All employees are following the default mapping. Scroll down to Hugo and see there's a rule applied for Hugo. We can see that his expense has been debited to the defined GL account for the Officer Director rule. You'll also notice that all of the credits are coming out of the payroll clearing account like defined on our default mapping. That's it. Thanks for choosing Cost Allocation Pro.